Hey everyone, this is Coach Dave March here, and in this episode of the Growth Mindset Podcast, we're going to be talking more about Geoffrey. Geoffrey is a customer success executive, and really, he's transformed a lot of organizations in the way that they can retain their employees, retain their customers, get new clients, and it's going to be a great episode. And we're back. All right. So for people that are not aware of who I am and what we're here for and the Growth Mindset Podcast, I'm Coach Dave March. I'm an author of book Vision and Action. See here, been at this kind of career transition for about 10 years now. And I have my co-host here, Patrick Brown. You want to say a few words?
How you guys doing? My name is Patrick Brown. I've been in maintenance, ran my own company, collective trades department, and I let that go and decided to follow my passion, which is my music, and get to my Southern-based recording company, Scarab Entertainment. And yeah, I am here on the Growth Mindset Podcast to learn as much as I can from giants in the game. So I am excited about that.
Awesome. Then we have our guest here, Geoffrey. Introduce yourself to the audience here, Geoffrey.
Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. My name is Geoffrey Weiss. I've spent my career working with organizations globally in both the B2C and B2B space, driving not only value-based selling or sales methodologies, but customer success and making those manifest into success for the companies that I work with. Part of that is leadership. And I'm very excited to talk with you today about how I've been able to do that in my career.
Awesome. Yeah. Leadership is a hot topic right now.
Yeah.
It's something we've been talking about in a lot of episodes.
It's because leadership is such is lacking nowadays. I feel like even as a society, our attitude towards guided, structured leadership, we're in flux right now. So it's good to you would say beat a dead horse, but I think we should beat that horse. Leadership is everything.
Yeah, I would agree. Look, even leaders need leaders. It's just kind of how it works. And, talking about, how Geoffrey has kind of led organizations here, why don't we talk about some of the challenges that you have, seen through different, companies and their different problems that they've had, and kind of address them one by one here.
So, David, as I look across the industry, I see companies facing difficulty in standing up customer success in a fashion that creates repeatable success. In other words, the organization is being set up, it's very tactical in nature. It's very driven towards a customer complaint, almost a support narrative. Customer success is supposed to be more strategic in helping customers go from buying a product, implementing the product, receiving value from the product, and driving success in their own organizations. My approach in working with companies to do this is understand the complexity of the product, the offering, what's included in it. What are the profiles and segmentation of their customers? How do those customers adopt the product currently? I see this underestimated in so many cases across the industry. Many people believe solving it with a tool will make your customer success organization run smoothly. That is not true. You need process, business orchestration. You need your customers to understand, in this success motion, what am I going to do for you? It also needs to be, I'm big on measurement. I just had a recent podcast or post about this, post that talked to this. And it was really around success can be very generic in nature, meaning I went and had a meeting. Well, what did you do at that meeting? Many companies don't measure what's done at the meeting. What was the activity? Did you do a quarterly business review? In that business review, did you talk about new capabilities in the product? Did you talk about how this customer can move forward with the product? Or did you focus on they're not using what they actually bought because their users don't understand? They need to be educated.
Absolutely.
You need to be able to measure these things so that you can adjust your course of action with the customer. It's important for a company to do this because if they don't, they will be spending money on a success motion and not receiving the benefit and value out of it. You will not be able to cross-sell and upsell with that team if you can't get the first step correct. This I see too often drive companies to a slow growth or problems where they end up spinning off divisions of their company.
Totally. Yeah.
I agree. I'm one of those people who actually use platforms online to get the work that I'm doing now done. And I just don't always know every capability that's possible in any program that I get into. And sometimes the onboarding or introduction of what features the program has and how it can help my business is a lot of times lackluster. And some programs are so, I would call it legacy, let's say like Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Premiere, that most of the users have been using it for a while. And sometimes I feel they don't create programs to say, hey, if you're a beginner at Premiere, here's a nice little step of video tutorials that help you out. So it's like a very powerful program, but I don't get the full use out of it unless I go on YouTube and dig for it, as opposed to, being able to dig right there through the company. So yeah, it's wasted on me in a lot of ways because no one's helped me take full advantage of the program.
This is important, Patrick, because a good success operation is going to have everything from onboarding to a defined set of activities that are going to be done with the customer to a support or premier support kind of function at the back end, so that you're with the customer that entire life journey that they're using your software to help someone like yourself. I've had experience in standing up onboarding organizations primarily because we would sell software into a customer and then the customer was upset because they couldn't get it to do what they wanted it to do. The partner that implemented the software told the customer other things than the sales team told them. So
yeah, that's a big piece. Let me stop you right there. And I think that, this is really an issue in a lot of life. It's the knowledge transfer, right? Like you're saying, essentially the salesman sold the customer on these particular products and features. And when the implementation team came in to educate the customer, they weren't on the same features. Now, one of the interesting things about this was it kind of brought me back to, I think I went to like outdoor retreat. It was like outdoor retreat and they had this like obstacle course there, and obstacle course, they said, okay, someone go first. And the people one person would go first, go through the whole obstacle course, and then just sit there after he finished. They didn't actually transfer the knowledge that he understood through going through the obstacle course. And so that's the biggest piece. No one does this knowledge transfer.
Absolutely. And that's major too for me. It's not necessarily, I would say, a specific product, but I was joining a MLM company and they sold me on the idea that the products that they were selling, I could just use it and move like a store. You know what I mean? I didn't have to get into the let me find a friend and invite you to be part of it. It was two ways to really, make it. But once I got in, I realized it was completely networking and the product that they sold was an internal sale as opposed to like everybody used the product. So it was more of an internal sale as opposed to something that I could actually say, I'm going to get a bulk supply of products and sell it at a decent cost and make some money. So the person who sold me on the idea didn't completely be forthcoming about what was possible. And it wasn't until I got in and started working with people inside of the company that they explained to me that it was different. And it's kind of like buyer's remorse. Like I thought I was getting one thing and now I realize I'm getting something different. And I mean, that could be for desperation of sales, which I guess that's a training issue.
But I mean, what it comes down to is outcomes, right? And I think Geoffrey can speak about this. Outcomes. What are the outcomes that you're looking for? Is the outcome that you're looking for to eliminate buyer's remorse? That sort of thing.
David, absolutely. It is tied to the buyer's remorse. It's tied to companies suing your company because they didn't get what they thought. It's tied to helping customers realize value faster. We called it time to value. We wanted to be able to get the customer from the buy all the way to receiving value as fast as possible. The next step was to help them go from knowing nothing about the application to expert and be able to train others in their organization. Coordinating between a partner and our software company was important because the partners began to understand the mission that we were on creating a wow experience for the customers so that they could achieve what they bought the software for. This wasn't complicated, but it was an orchestration across multiple departments, multiple people, multiple parties, and shielding the customer from some of that mess that happens behind the curtain. The customer should have an end-to-end experience, somewhat like when people travel to Disney. When you go into the park, you don't see all the mess that's happening behind the curtain. Customers shouldn't see that when they buy your software either.
100%. I mean, that's a great point. That's a great point. So, when we're talking about, companies, especially companies that are growing, that have investors, one of the interesting things I think you do well, Geoffrey, is, really the stakeholder communications and, speaking with investors, delivering on the promises to such an extent where they want to give you more investment. Can you speak more about that?
Absolutely, David. This is an important point. Before we stood up this one customer success unit in particular, we had to go from market research, leveraging a team of individuals, to business case development, to funding. That's how we were able to secure our first round of funding, close to $10 million to stand up a business unit. But the organization, customer success isn't a department. It's a culture in a company. And it took me working across the organization to change the mindset about what success was. People were questioning, why are we investing in this? Is this replacing sales? Is this replacing support? Is this replacing pre-sales? It's none of those things. And we had to help the organization understand how it was going to interact with the ecosystem that already had been running for decades. We had such success in year one in being able to drive the results that we were seeking through building a set of deliverables, a set of interaction models, a set of ways that we would work with different tiered customers, which required a segmentation model that we had built out. We were able to, in year one, affect the gross retention rate by close to 8 points in year one. Sales was so excited about this, they gave us enough funding to double our size in year two. So we were able to take sales from a non-believer, didn't see the value, to we believe and we want to help you accelerate. What's important, David, is in that year one, I stood up a voice of the customer team across the organization because this particular company had a problem with pillars, departments not working together. They were working on their own agendas. They weren't working on a customer agenda. I needed to get the leadership for these pillars to work on a customer agenda. That meant changes to product. That meant changes to support. That meant changes to sales. I had to partner with all of them in order to make that happen. The companies that I consult with today, I have to work across departments in order to drive change. I use the word drive, but it's really not drive. I inspire the change. People want to change because they see the benefit of what it'll do for the customers and for the financials of the company.
I mean, I think that's the main thing too, right? So it's like you're not forcing compliance. You're inspiring them based off of the results and based off of the benefits that they're already seeing with the work that you've already done. That's how you are able to get more investment, and that's how you're able to get everybody's adoption and consensus on this whole thing. I think that's the whole idea there. So that's really fantastic.
I was just going to add, it kind of takes me back to, I did an internship at Toyota in that manufacturing process. That was one of the big things that they always preached into us, that your customer was the next person on the line. Your customer was the next person on the line, or your customer was the next person in the department. So from quality, from stamping to painting, everybody had a need to work. So we had to have interoperability between the two departments, always talking and linking so that we could, which was the other concept of just in time, so that everything was arriving to the next department in time, no waste. So when the departments are not cohesively, communicating and they're all working in their own agendas, you kind of got a group of individuals, and that can really cause a lot of problems. So
Patrick, that's important because the success of the company is about a culture change. When a SaaS company goes down the path, or an on-prem company that's going to a SaaS platform, they need to be able to change the culture and how they think about their customers. No longer is it a licensed sale and we'll collect maintenance from them. It's a ongoing service, a subscription that we need to work with this customer to understand the application, understand the use cases, receive the value, be able to use it in other areas of their company that they may not have thought about, so that they're getting more value on the dollar that they spent for their original purchase. These folks that SaaS companies sell to, yes, they run a department, they run a function, but those individuals, they want to succeed too. We have to remember, we're selling to other humans that have their own agendas, their own success standards, their own desires. Success sells as much as they drive success with a said customer. Those customers look to the success individual to help them understand. They end up becoming a trusted advisor to that individual, especially if we're helping to make them more successful in their role and creating value for the company.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, look, trusted advisor is something that like really comes up a lot when I look at this. If I'm looking at the different positions that are out there, they're looking for someone that's going to be a trusted advisor to really give them that kind of guidance and give them that kind of leadership, where that type of leadership that's going to bring it in, and mobilize the workforce. And that's kind of the big piece there too, right?
David, I can.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
Yeah.
one thing to point out. That success representative is an advocate for the customer. They need to be able to represent the customer across this organization that has all these other priorities. That's where the voice of the customer concept that I talked about before was utilized. It gave those representatives a vehicle to talk with the organization, all the key decision makers, and drive change for the customers. This is really important because if you don't act as an advocate to the organization and the organization does not respect the advocate, you cannot receive the value. You will not create the culture that we talked about.
I just wanted to chime in because I've never heard it put like that before, but it just makes sense on how important that is. Just thinking about the fact that being the end, like as the customer, I get the product at the end. So it's very easy from department to department for no one to think about me as a customer until it's in someone's hand and they have to sell it. They'll have to think about, because they're the one who's delivering the product. But it would be so much easier for that guy to do his job if everybody was thinking about the customer along the way, or had someone that would advocate for the needs of the customer during those meetings, those decisions between department, so that when the sales guy get it, it's an open and shut case. We thought about it all the way through. So you're just pretty much delivering a product that was crafted with the customer in mind from start to finish. And that is, it'll show up in the product from one who does it, a company that does it, and a company that doesn't. But I never heard it put like that. And I think that's so genius.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I know that that's something that people can hire you for to help you implement that whole idea. But I'm curious, like, is that done through, is there just like a document, like, hey, everyone, just, here's the document. Here's the voice of the customer document. It's probably a lot more than that. Well, just like, did you file the voice of the customer document? No. Well, yeah, you got to go back, man. What did you do? You listen.
David, this is a great question. It's tied to, there was an existing challenge in the company where the existing organization didn't communicate with one another.
That's kind of the key, right? Yeah.
And in order to get that done, this voice of the customer platform meeting that met once a month as a team
Okay. Monthly meeting.
Brought in 8 different points of view to a discussion around customer ideas, pain points, challenges. This was one vehicle of 3 that we used. The voice of the customer was an internal meeting where we had this discussion. And what this voice of the customer meeting did, it helped to drive action and investment into different areas: sales, product, support, success. This was happening at the highest levels in the company. The CEO and his directs were deciding on how we would solve and invest in certain issues over time. They were sequenced, they were prioritized and addressed so that these issues were resolved in the process. They made us more efficient. They made our customers happy. Happy is in creating advocates that would talk more about the company and how the company listened to them. Wow. This also shortened. Customers ask for things in a product, and a product has a roadmap. I was able to work with the product team to secure 20% of the release for these customer asks. Every time a new release was done, we prioritized those things from the voice of the customer, and they were added to the release. Customers would message me and my team thanking us for listening to what they needed in order to do their business better.
I mean, it almost seems like a no-brainer, but yeah, that's such a big thing. I laugh because I had a thought in my head. It happens to bands, but ours is always, you know what I'm saying? We forgot about the music. Everybody got so big and everybody got the big head and forgot that we did it for the music. And I think the same goes for businesses. The product is delivered to the customer, and as a business expands and grows and adds more people, the person who started the business, that's their baby. That's their, their dream. That personal connection makes it truer when you're in your beginning phases, but as you as a CEO continue to it expands and it becomes so many departments, you don't have the same hands-on connection with your product going to the customer anymore. And devising a system to get the whole company to understand that's what we're here for is absolutely important, because in the end you lose values and mission and quality. And again, there was I won't say what company came in the building with Toyota during my internship, but when they did, they started changing the company culture in a negative way because they were no longer following the principles that made that company great. They were seeing the dollar signs behind the fact that they were already great and you could pump out more product. And I'm sure other companies have done it, that once you made a reputation, you have loyal customers that's going to buy your next product regardless. And some people will push the production of that product to make more money and not checking the quality of the product and whether it's damaging the reputation we took so many years to build. And I mean, it may not happen instantaneously, but over time, degrade the name of the company. So I think having someone who keeps reminding and pushing that the customer is the one we're trying to serve and keeping that vision of the CEO aligned in that way. Yeah. Like I said.
And Patrick, sometimes it doesn't have to be a person. As we look into the industry today, AI, machine learning, is augmenting some of these problems that customer success practitioners experience in working with customers, in both helping the practitioner to understand how the customer is using the application, what they're not using in the application. This comes from telemetry data. They then can act on that in working with the customer. Or some customers, Patrick, might get a customized email or communication using AI based on how you're using the application with a training video or a help that's included. This helps provide success on demand when you need it, Patrick, not when the success manager comes and visits once a month, once a week. It allows you to drive the success as you need it. And I believe in today's world, as we're working with applications, we all want to move as fast as possible. Success practitioners want to be able to manage more customers, but make it feel personalized. I've been following this space very closely over the past 2 years, and there are a number of platforms that can be used to create personalized experience, streamline the customer interaction, getting the customer what they need and making it feel like it's coming from an individual. These things can help an organization to accelerate its growth, but not deprioritizing the customer as you had articulated. It allows them to keep a personalized touch and monitor how the customer is using the application.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So let's,
I'm sorry.
do you want to go?
Language models, I'm really big on that because it has changed. I never thought I would have so much connection talking to a computer because I would
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
but somehow
ChatGPT is my best friend.
definitely become my friend. So it does a really good job at creating that. So
And creating the privacy to a certain degree, because it's like, I mean, who knows of anymore what's private, but that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, I mean, again, it's like conversations or topics where you would really want to have it in a group setting or something like that, and you can have those type of conversations. So kind of moving on here, I want to get into more about Free as kind of more of a person, and as it relates to, let's say, the things that you've kind of done in your career that, or and this doesn't have to be things done in the career, but maybe even challenges that you've faced that catapulted you into the leader you are today. Maybe you had some negative experiences and you're like, I really don't want other people to go through that. And so now I've changed up my leadership style so that they don't have to go through that. Some pieces like that.
David, great question. There's this piece around grit and being able to roll up your sleeves and learn. I have had the opportunity to study leadership for close to 20 plus years. I've been in multiple leadership development programs. I have a true passion for helping success to be driven across the businesses that I work in, helping them to grow their margins, be more profitable, drive the EBITDA on the bottom line, to have customers that are advocates and successful. The biggest challenges that I've crossed in that process is learning over the years that it's not about the solution, it's about the people. And as I've gone through that leadership journey, it's important to understand what your teams, what your people, what your partners view as their priorities and helping them to achieve their goals and their objectives while you achieve yours, creating a win-win scenario in leadership. By doing this method across companies, I've been able to drive retention rates in the high 90s, employee satisfaction in the high 90s. This is one of those things that I believe comes from experience. You have to develop your leadership capabilities. David, when I started my journey, I had none. I was an individual contributor that had my head down and I learned. I've developed this over my career and it has been a challenge. It hasn't always gone super smooth. Figuring out how to tune into different individuals takes time. I happen to believe in these customer success organizations. We need individuals that have the experience, the breadth, and depth of roles to understand how these other parts of the companies work. This is not a role for a support person that gets promoted to be a chief customer officer or a marketing role that goes to chief customer officer. And they've done that their entire career. You need to span multiple roles, data analytics, sales, customer success, consulting, in order to lead these type of organizations. And help the companies to realize the exponential growth that they seek.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think that as a skill, that is something that is so lost, is being able to assess and evaluate people. Because I think that's one of the biggest things that in management, a lot of times, at least when there's a product involved, a lot of times management and logistics care about the product and don't look at that you're also managing people. And that doesn't just mean they're a number, they're an actual whole person who has ideas, goals, dreams, and things. And it all affects the way they work and how they think about the company. And if you don't get that deep into your I guess you could say, gears in your, in your company, the very, thing that holds it together, then you don't really know where people truly belong and where they can shine the best. There are people who are in roles that have skills that would fit elsewhere, but no one ever took the time to assess what's in their repertoire to be able to say, you know what, maybe you should do a lateral move over here as opposed to be in this position, because I see you're very intuitive and that would work good in this department, and bring somebody else over. So I feel like when you get to that level, and I mean just in social scenes, I mean family, if you have a family or a wife, knowing the emotional climate of the house allows you to be able to better manage the house, so the same can carry over into business. So I think that's an invaluable skill to have in life, and a lot of people don't take enough time to truly gain it, because it does take time and a desire to learn. Yeah, you definitely show that.
Let me talk quickly about how that matters for enterprise customers. I had a number of cases where we had enterprise customers that were going to leave. They were frustrated because our product did not fulfill their needs the way they wanted it to. And there were competitors in the market that were knocking at their door. These skills that we just spoke about, the skill of understanding who you're talking to. This person could be in APAC somewhere. This person could be in Spain somewhere. This person could be in Germany somewhere. And you have to be able to connect with that individual and the team in those markets that is working with the customer. We had cases where they were threatening to leave. I was able to use that skill set to bring the market teams together. We were able to turn the relationship around from halfway around the world. I flew out there twice to meet with them personally. They were amazed. This is one of the largest electronics companies globally. They meant a lot to us. We met them on their terms. We helped them to get what they needed from the application. We coordinated with product so that they made the changes to the product. Net, this customer ended up renewing. They didn't attrite, and we took out our competitor in another part of the globe. That's how these skills, right? Exactly. That's how these skills come together.
What else could you ask for? Man.
Myers-Briggs. I mean, one episode on here, we talked about Myers-Briggs and astrology, because that was something that we were talking about when creating teams, having an evaluation on who someone is or their capabilities. And we were talking about using those kind of two ideas of evaluating someone's personality in order to see how they fit with the team. Yeah. I don't, like I said, that skill, anybody who has it, you're worth your weight in gold. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, we did actually Geoffrey did a Myers-Briggs as well. And unsurprisingly, he is the leadership type. Unsurprisingly. There's like one type that's like, known for its leadership, and that's his type. I think like what Geoffrey said before is really important, and something I touched on in my book. I saw this years ago, like 10 years ago. Continues to happen a lot of different places. It's the idea that, okay, you're really good at this one thing, and let's promote you to this other big thing. Sometimes it doesn't work. Because especially if you're a really good salesperson, it's like, all right, well, the next promotion from being a salesperson is a manager, sales leader. And so now you're not in the field. Now you're not selling anyone. Now you're in an office managing people. Now that is a completely different skill set. You're not going to like sell your people on this thing to do. It's like, it's not going to happen. It's a different skill set. You're managing people now. You're leading them. You're not necessarily selling them. So
you're developing them.
You're developing them. That's a big piece. A lot of people don't realize that. And that's like what you're saying. Like if you're, and the same thing if you're in marketing, same kind of idea. I mean, the main idea really, all this is like, if you're a good leader, you're going to be empowering them and enabling them to be the best they could be in that role.
Because it takes a level of nurturing. It takes a level of nurturing people's strengths and, like I said, recognizing them. in order to develop the skills that you see. And you can't see skills if you haven't been out there enough in an array of ideas to be able to see people's strengths, your tunnel vision, if you've only worked in one department. So,
David, I'd like to talk about one more example around a unit that was failing, and the organization was considering just shutting the unit down. It had underperformed for close to 3 years, and it was part of this success journey. Earlier in the call, I mentioned onboarding, customer success, and in this case, it was a premier support function. This team had been performing support for close to 20 years, 25 years. Some of those people have been with that team that long. Despite that, it was underperforming. I had to step in, bring a new leader in. I actually had to fight for this particular leader that I wanted. She was a rock star, and I was thrilled to be able to garner her to lead this team of individuals. She ended up transforming the structure of the team and the offering that we went to market with. I was actively involved in helping this team to understand the customer mission we were driving towards. How were we going to work with customers? How were we going to transform their role? What did that picture look like to them? I'm very happy to say that team overperformed 125% in its first year. We expected to continue to see growth from that. That's where a customer pays for an elevated support experience. The success part of the motion and the premier support function worked very close together in order to make that happen. We've talked throughout this call about coordination, communication, same vision and goal setting, aligning folks to an outcome. What you measure might be activity-based. What you pay on is outcome-based. And those two are related from the standpoint that those activities directly affect the customer's CSAT, the customer's adoption, the customer's utilization. That's how you move the numbers of a SaaS company, because more users will use the application if they're getting a great onboarding, an excellent customer success motion where they are growing in that motion, and support when they need it in order to solve the challenge that they have at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah, so I think we covered most of our topics here today. We covered, that was a great overview of what we talked about actually. And as we kind of end this podcast for today, one of the things that I'd like to end it with is, maybe a quote from one of your favorite authors, or maybe a quote from one of the posts you've written, Geoffrey.
David, one of my favorite is, what gets measured gets managed. And the reason is, in these success organizations, just doing the activity and not measuring it, not rewarding the activity, not paying on the outcomes doesn't drive the right behaviors.
So true.
Yeah.
A friend of mine who said, never despise the small victories. Sometimes we got our mind on such a big goal that small victories, we're never incrementally celebrating our climb to our success. We're just waiting for the success. So in the end, we miss out on actually measuring the small steps, and are we doing those correct to get to where we're going? So yeah, small victories.
Agreed. Well, let's end it on small victories here. And yeah, thanks everyone for your long attention span today. If you like what you see here, we got more on the Growth Mindset podcast, and as you know, you can subscribe if you want to hear some more. And thanks everyone. Thanks Geoffrey.
Thank
Patrick.
you.
I guess that's
it.
All right.
Yes.